The Democrats launch their final October surprise. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, less than 2 weeks now. In fact, 12 days before the historic November 5 election. And the Democrats now have shown us their October surprise. And you know what it is? Donald J. Trump is Hitler 2.0. I'm not kidding. This is their final last-ditch pitch to voters. That if you vote for Donald Trump, and this is now coming straight from Kamala Harris herself, no longer her surrogates, no longer the media, this is now straight from the proverbial horse's mouth. If you pull that lever for Donald J. Trump, you are now voting for the 21st century version of Adolf Hitler, who will impose a Nazi-style dictatorship upon the United States, terminate the Constitution, make himself a strongman or a dictator for life, and it will be the end of America as we've known it. This is her final message and pitch to the voters. This is their famous October surprise that they said they were going to unveil and show to the American people that would ultimately disqualify Trump, because they claim not only now that he's unstable, not only that he's unhinged, not only that he's dangerous, not only even that he has quote-unquote authoritarian or dictatorial tendencies. No. By the way, gone are the days of convicted felon, convicted felon, convicted felon. I assume that didn't focus group very well. So, they've now gone in for dictator, Hitler, fascist, and Nazi. And the evidence that they say is the smoking gun is an interview that John Kelly, General John Kelly, who was Trump's chief of staff in his first term, gave to the New York Times, in which now The Atlantic is running wild with. CNN, they're losing their minds over this interview. MSNBC, CBS, ABC, NBC, The Washington Post, The Boston Globe. It is literally everywhere. They have flooded the media, flooded the airwaves with this interview by General John Kelly. And General Kelly, who, by the way, all of you need to know this, I know General John Kelly. In fact, he and I have had multiple interviews together. We have helped raise money for Boston Fisher House and disabled American veterans over many, many years. And I am profoundly disappointed in him. He stabbed Donald Trump not in the back. He stabbed him in the chest. Et tu, General Kelly. Et tu, General Kelly. And just so that you know, I asked for him to come on the show. I invited him to explain his position in greater detail, to explain himself, and so far, he is refusing to come on the show. And honestly, I think he should be ashamed of himself. And I recognize his service. I salute his service. I know he lost a son in Iraq. My heart breaks for that. I don't call into question his patriotism or his love of our country. But I am calling into question his judgment, and I'm sorry to say this, his honesty. In an interview to the New York Times, General Kelly, 2 weeks before the election, suddenly, out of the blue, now has come out and said, these are now his words in the interview that he gave, that quote-unquote, Donald Trump admires the generals of Adolf Hitler. that according to General Kelly, what he loves about Hitler's generals is that those generals were loyal to Hitler, just like Trump wants generals who are personally loyal to him. Not to the Constitution, according to Kelly, not to the United States, but to him. And furthermore, that Donald J. Trump has fascist tendencies, that he is a fascist at his fundamental core, that he admires authoritarian dictators, and that he wants to imitate authoritarian dictators here in the United States. He then went on to claim that he had a conversation with Trump at one point in which Trump said to him, Hitler did some very good things. To which Kelly claims he said, like what? And Trump said, well, in many ways he helped rebuild Germany's economy. To which General Kelly allegedly said, I put Trump in his place. I told Trump he rebuilt his economy for what? To invade his neighbors, to invade the world, to start World War II. You should never have anything good to say about Adolf Hitler. And from this, Kelly says, Trump is an admirer of Adolf Hitler. You want to know why he's going to be Hitler? He admires Hitler. He admires Hitler's generals. He wants to imitate Hitler. And if you get him now for a second time, you will now see the rise of the Fourth Reich. You will now see Trump, backed by MAGA, I guess you, me, all of us, a groundswell of fascist support will now carry him, and he will make himself a Führer, a dictator, and that he will never leave office until his death. This is their smoking gun. This is all they have left. And so General Kelly said, I am warning the country, you cannot elect Donald Trump. If you elect Donald Trump, you are electing a strong man who will destroy our democracy, divide this country, and impose a fascist dictatorship. Listen now to Kamala Harris. Yesterday, for the first time in 90 days since she was made the nominee, she held a quote-unquote, I swear to you, emergency press conference. But she didn't take any questions. No. It was now to warn the American people. We have the smoking gun. Here it is. Here it is. I'm holding up a copy of the New York Times. I'm holding up a copy of the Atlantic magazine. Here it is. Here it is. John Kelly, Trump's former chief of staff, says Trump admires Hitler. Trump will be a dictator. Trump is a fascist. Roll cut one, Mike.
So yesterday we learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired four-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him.
So, now, by the way, this is John Kelly. Now, he gave an interview to the New York Times. He also spoke to CNN's Jim Sciutto, who, by the way, is a rabid anti-Trumper. Even by CNN standards, he's rabid. Kelly then spoke to Jim Sciutto for his book. Listen now. The audio is not the best, but this is Kelly on tape. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
He commented more than once that, that Hitler did some good things too. And of course, if you know history, again, I think he's lacking in that. But if you know what Hitler was all about, it'd be pretty hard to make an argument that he did anything good.
So from those comments, Kelly said, look, I was working with a Nazi. I was working with a fascist. That's what I realized. I said, this guy wants to be the second Adolf Hitler. So listen now to Kamala Harris, responding both to Kelly and to this piece, which I'm going to get to, in The Atlantic by Jeffrey Goldberg, an anti-Trump assassin. Roll cut 2, Mike.
He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens.
But it's not just that. Coming up next, they now have crossed the red line. Kamala Harris explicitly says Donald Trump is a fascist. And if he is elected, you will now see a fascist dictatorship come to America. This is their October surprise. 619 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, this is now Kamala's final pitch. Down the stretch we come. This is now the October surprise that everyone has been waiting for. Honestly, I mean, I'm a talk show host. I mean, I make my I make my living with my words, and I'm almost speechless. Really, seriously. I don't know almost what to make of this. I mean, I do, but it's just one of these things you're just thunderstruck. So the closing argument of this campaign and their big October surprise, and remember, this was a campaign that was supposed to be based on quote unquote joy and good vibes and being positive and uplifting and optimistic. And, I know it was all vague generalities, but the point is, unlike the doom and gloom of Joey and Biden, no, Kamala was the cackler, the laugher, someone who would, uplift everybody and bring the country together. And this is how she's ending her campaign? With this kind of vicious, nasty, angry, bitter, there's no other word, hysterical, shrill, frankly, insane. It's insane. I mean, do these people listen to themselves? This now dire warning that we are Weimar Germany, hanging by a thread, and there is the Fuhrer with his evil orange hair and face, marching to power to impose now and finish what Hitler started. I mean, these people are crazy. But literally, the media is pushing this. I mean, I've never seen them. This is pedal to the metal. It is saturation coverage of Kelly's interview, of Kelly's comments, and Kamala now with her big press conference. So here it is. This is now what the Democrats, this is their final stand. This is now their final pitch to the voters. Listen now to Kamala Harris saying, you've heard now from General Kelly, former chief of staff under Trump, a military professional. Trump is Hitler. And if he gets elected, fascism will now descend upon America. Roll cut 2A, Mike.
And let's be clear about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify, in his mind, as the enemy within, like judges, like journalists, like nonpartisan election officials.
So judges, journalists, election officials, everybody's now going to an internment camp. Hitler rounded them up and Hitler killed them, or jailed them, imprisoned them, and they just died in prison. So it's coming now. Hitler is here. We have another 12 days to stop him, or else everybody's going to go to jail. Not only is everybody going to go to jail, but listen now to this. He is Hitler. And Hitler killed 6 million Jews. And Trump is now the heir to Adolf. Roll cut 3, Mike.
It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans. All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is. This is a window into who Donald Trump really is, from the people who know him best, from the people who worked with him side by side in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room.
Now, this is why the General Kelly interview is so key to the Democrats. And that's why the media are covering it and repeating it and regurgitating it and discussing it over and over and over. Because they're saying, oh, no, don't take our word for it. This is General Kelly's warning. He worked with Trump. He spoke with Trump. He knew Trump. He knows him. Roll cut 4, Mike.
From John Kelly's words that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, who in fact vowed to be a dictator on day one and vowed to use the military as his personal militia to carry out his personal and political vendettas. Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable.
She then goes on to say that without John Kelly's and without people like former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley, and others to block Trump, you're going to get now the Fourth Reich. Fascism and a Nazi dictatorship will now be the law in the United States. It will now be a new era. The republic, democracy will die on November 5th. Roll cut 4A, Mike.
In a second term, people like John Kelly would not be there to be the guardrails against his propensities and his actions. Those who once tried to stop him from pursuing his worst impulses would no longer be there, and no longer be there to rein him in. So the bottom line is this. We know what Donald Trump wants. He wants unchecked power. The question in 13 days will be, what do the American people want? Thank you.
Now, there's one more very, very important cut, and then I want to open it up to the phone lines. Mike, how much time left? Okay, I'm going to play it on the other side. And then I want to unleash the phone lines. 617-266-6868 is the number. So she is asked point blank. Then she does a CNN town hall. It was all coordinated. You have the John Kelly interview. He gives it to the New York Times and then to CNN and then to the Atlantic. And then they disseminate it throughout the entire media ecosystem, the ecosystem. And now it is a full-on propaganda barrage. She then goes on CNN to do a town hall. Anderson Cooper asks her the all-important question. I've got that. Your call's next. 6:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so General John Kelly, by the way, look, he is, to me, I'm telling you right now, I believe he's an agent of the deep state. And I want to get to this in more detail later. He was leaking against Trump during his first term when he was chief of staff. He leaked against him relentlessly. That was one of the major reasons why Trump fired him. And I got to be careful how I phrase this, but let's put it this way. Sources that I know who are close to the general, and I know this, you take it to the bank, he never forgave Trump for firing him. It wounded his pride. it wounded his ego. This is a man who thought he was a gift to Trump, that Trump should have listened to him more, that Trump was foolish not to have people like General Kelly essentially run his administration, and that when Trump fired him, they took it as a massive personal insult. And so this is payback. John Kelly waited for 2 weeks before the election. Think about this. If you really believe that this guy, and I'm quoting now him directly, word for word, is the textbook definition of a quote-unquote fascist, that this man is an admirer of Adolf Hitler, that this man wants to do in America what Hitler did to Nazi Germany. Number one, why did you say nothing about this when you served under him in your first term? As long as you were his chief of staff, apparently you had no problem. If you believe him. Then he fires you. But then you say nothing. So when Hitler comes back and Hitler wins the Republican nomination, again, I'm just going by their logic, why didn't you sound the warning then? When Trump then goes and gets officially gets the nomination at the Republican National Convention, why didn't you sound the warning then? If this guy truly is, if you're saying he's Hitler, he's a fascist, he's going to impose a dictatorship, he's going to have the military pledge loyalty to him, and then he's going to unleash his brown shirts, i.e. the paramilitaries, and they're going to start murdering, executing, jailing, and imprisoning people. And impose, as I said, their Nazi-style Reich on the United States. You wait 2 weeks before the election? Right. Now, she then goes on CNN. You can see it was all coordinated. And Anderson Cooper says, everybody's calling him a fascist. You're citing all of these people that are calling him a fascist. You're calling him a dictator. You're saying the military is going to have to bend the knee. He's going to start putting everybody in internment camps. Is he a fascist? Here it is. Roll cut 5A. Mike.
You've quoted General Milley calling Donald Trump a fascist. You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted. Again, look at their careers. These are not people, with the exception, I think, of only Mike Pence. These were not politicians. These are career people who have served in the highest roles in national security, who have served as generals in our military, who are highly respected. Talking about the person who would be commander-in-chief.
They were fired. They were fired. That's what they all have in common. Trump said, you're doing a horrible job, you're out. That's the swamp. That's the swamp in a nutshell. And if you dare, remember what Chuck Schumer said about firing James Comey. You don't fire these guys. Because 6 ways to Sunday, they're going to get you. And now, this is the deep state, and that's what Kelly is, make no mistake about it. He is an agent of the deep state. And this is now the deep state lashing out and trying to destroy Trump and tilt this election at the last final hour. Now, let me just make one last point, and I want to go to the phone lines. Sandy and I had a fascinating discussion off air, just, 5 minutes ago. And I said, look, Sandy, according to the media, there is a strategy to this, believe it or not. It's not just blind, crazed hysteria. According to the Kamala campaign, and this is why she's campaigning with Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, that's why she's rolling out all these Republicans who are supporting her, and now she's rolling out these generals, these disaffected generals. They believe that there is a slice of voters out there, just a slice, of moderate Republicans, centrist or rhino Republicans, maybe some college-educated women that are more national security hawks, that can't swallow Kamala's socialism and, frankly, her communism, but just don't like Donald Trump. They hate Trump. And so they're saying, if we panic porn them enough, if we fearmonger them enough, if we scare the living daylights out of them, Hitler is coming, Hitler is coming, Hitler is coming. We can shame and we can scare, literally terrorize people into voting for her over Trump. Okay, that's apparently their strategy. Now, Sandy made a great point to me. She goes, look, Jeff, those people hate Trump and they're not going to vote for Trump. She goes, I think if it is their strategy, it's a disaster of a strategy. This is not going to move the needle at all. What this does do, and this is where I really agree with Sandy, is that she's now really laying the groundwork for the post-election rebellion. Her words, not mine, and I think it's a great phrase. Post-election rebellion. What they're now doing, this is what they're doing. This is so inflammatory and so incendiary and so reckless and so dangerous. And honestly, it is so divisive and polarizing. I don't know how we come back from this. I'm going to be honest with all of you. Because now, after you say this, how the hell do you accept Trump's victory on November 5th? Or whatever, 3-4 days later, or however they're going to try to run out the clock. But the point is, when Trump does win, the left is going to go berserk. Of course they're going to go berserk. What do you think the Bills in Sudbury are going to do? What do you think the Chris's in Gloucester, the Bens in North Andover? What do you think these yahoos are going to do? What do you think Antifa is going to do? What do you think Black Lives Matter is going to do? Hitler is rising to power. The Fourth Reich is now being born in front of our eyes. That's what they're telling their supporters again and again and again and again. And so what they want to create now is like a tinderbox that can blow after Trump wins so that they can create so much chaos afterwards and then try to block him from becoming president by saying, my God, look at the reaction to this man having won. We can't have him installed as president because they're looting, they're burning, they're rioting, they're protesting. This is what is so, to me, unforgivable. I want to repeat it, underline it. Unforgivable. No, in the history of the United States, nowhere near have you seen anything like this kind of a demagogic campaign. They were bad in 2016, not this bad. They were bad in 2020, not this bad. What they're really saying, I'm telling you, this is the logic of this. It's so obvious. They're saying is, don't accept the election results. That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. Or else you're going to surrender and capitulate to a Nazi dictatorship. And all of you are going to be sent to internment camps and you're all going to be killed. That's what they're saying. They're even throwing in 6 million Jews. Now, it is preposterous. Frankly, it's I'm sorry, there's no other way to say it. It's effing crazy. Like, if someone was talking to me like this at my kitchen table or in my living room, honestly, I'd look, and they go on and on and on, the way Kamala is or the way General Kelly is. I say, I'm sorry, man. You're blanking, I'm sorry. You're freaking crazy. Like, I'm telling, go check yourself into a mental asylum. You're nuts. But they keep saying it with a straight face. And now the whole media is saying it. And now the whole Democratic machine is saying it. Now, how do you think, their followers are going to take this? I'm sorry, I'm just stating 2 + 2 = 4. It's obvious what they're trying to do now. It's scorched earth. Heads we win, tails he loses. Either we win this thing, and if we don't, we're going to burn everything to the ground, literally. City after city after city, and we're going to do that, use that as an excuse to block him from coming to power. They're also going to try to assassinate him. This kind of rhetoric is exactly why Trump had 2 assassination attempts. Pray for the president. 649 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, lines are jammed. I'm going to go to the phone calls, I promise. Let me ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Kamala Harris now says, she's warning, Trump is a fascist. Nazism is coming to America should he win in November. Here, this is their ultimate now October surprise. Okay, it's all laid out now yesterday. This is it. This is what we're going to have now for the last 12 days of this election. The question of the day is this: will this change or persuade any undecided voters? Because that's ultimately the reason why they claim they're doing this. To appeal to the last few remaining swing, on the fence, undecided voters. So will this change them or persuade them to vote for Kamala? A, yes. B, no. I want to hear from you, Kuhner Country. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, at the Kuhner Report. It is all one word, Kuhn as in national ER. Let me throw in 2 more questions, and I'm going to go right to the phone lines. Number 1. And this is now what many people are saying. It's not unique to the Kuhner man. Are they now, by so openly, recklessly, dangerously calling Trump a fascist dictator and saying when he wins, you will now see Nazism rear its ugly head in America? America will become a Reich. Are they now putting Trump's life in danger? Is this now almost an open invitation for somebody to put a bullet in his head? 2 assassination attempts already. The Trump campaign came out yesterday. Fire and fury. I've never seen them this angry. Saying you are literally now putting Donald Trump's life in jeopardy. Their campaign issued a statement saying it is exactly this kind of outrageous, obscene rhetoric, false rhetoric, that got him shot and almost got him shot a second time. So, are they now putting Trump's life in mortal danger? And 3, and the last one. If Trump is Hitler, what are his supporters? We're his brown shirts. We're all the Nazi sympathizers. Are they also, in many ways, now putting us in danger from deranged leftists and fanatical, zealous liberals who now will see not just Trump, but anybody who votes for Trump as their mortal enemy? You're already seeing stories all over the country where liberals are knocking on the doors of people with a Trump sign, yelling and screaming, shouting, saying, how could you vote for this dictator? How could you vote for this fascist? How could you vote for this Hitler? In Philadelphia, in a key suburb, residents now with Trump signs are getting letters from alleged neighbors saying, we're going to get you for voting for Trump. We're going to kill your cat. We're going to kill your pets. We're going to wait. We're going to bide our time. If you're going to vote for a man that's going to put us into internment camps, we are now not going to let you forget it. So by going down this very dark road, are they now, in effect, now making Trump supporters, MAGA voters, you, me, all of us, toxic, radioactive, toxic? And is this paving the way now for real potential violence? 617-266-6868. The plate is full. It's all on the table. Bruce in Woburn. You're going to kick us off, Bruce, and welcome.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is the ultimate. Honestly, Bruce, this is the ultimate in moonbatism. I mean, you can't get crazier than this, Bruce. I think this is it now.
Well, here's my thing, Jeff. First thing, Kelly should be stripped of his rank. Like, stripped like he should lose just because he got fired by Trump. Trump fired all these a-holes because they turned on him. They did the old, backstabbing and whatever. But Kamala says that he's a what did she say? He was besides being a fascist. I mean, I don't like the word Hitler even brought up, and they bring it up. It was never a word spoken in my father's house. He fought in World War II. But the whole thing of it is, Jeff, is what they say that he's guilty of is what they're doing to us. She's the enemy from within. She's the one that brought all these people into this country. Her and Biden. Now, Biden's out of the picture, and she's in the picture, and they got this, that, and the other thing going on. Jeff, it's unbelievable what they're doing. This is like Halloween. It's crazy. Let's just think about this for 1 second. They, meaning them, they're not fascists. They're communists.
Well, look, Bruce, I think you put your finger right on it. This is really classic projection. That's what this is. I mean, look, if you want, I don't want to get into the details here, but the classic definition of fascism, and we're going to have Dinesh D'Souza on tomorrow, and he wrote a whole book on this. So he's a, bigger expert even than I am. The definition of fascism is the fusion of government and corporate power to basically run and control people's lives, and up to and including jailing and putting away your political opponents. That's the definition of fascism. How is this not the Democratic Party? The fusion of government with big pharma, the fusion of government with big tech, the fusion of government with the military-industrial complex, the fusion of government with big business in Wall Street and Silicon Valley, and the entire corporate media. And now putting your opponents in jail. Never mind the 1,500 January Sixers, never mind Steve Bannon, never mind Peter Navarro. I could run down the whole list. Look what they want to do to Trump. Look what they want to do to Elon Musk. So I could just go down the list. So if anybody is going to be accusing anybody of fascism, it's us against them. So what they're accusing us of is what they're committing. That's number one. Number two, Kelly beclowned himself. He beclowned himself with these outrageous, ridiculous accusations. If this guy was an actual Hitler admirer, and that's why he won't come on my show, because he knows this is the obvious question I'm going to ask him. Well, according now to what you told the New York Times, this is what you told the Times, that he made all of these obscene, outrageous comments praising Hitler. Well, why didn't you resign on the spot when you were his chief of staff? You never said anything. You never complained. Now, 2 weeks before the election, how many years after you were fired as his chief of staff? All of a sudden now? Oh, and by the way, yeah, he's an admirer of Hitler. Why didn't you say anything at the time? Why didn't you tender your resignation? You phony, you fraud, you. He has no rebuttal to that. And by the way, and I'm going to get to this later in the show, I promise. Why is it that numerous first-hand witnesses at conversations that Kelly said allegedly happened, nobody else heard Trump say what Kelly alleges he said? They said, we're at these conversations. I never heard Trump praise Hitler. What's this guy talking about? Suckers and losers? There were over a dozen people present at that meeting. Where they said, this is the same Atlantic that made, the Atlantic in September of 2020. Same author, Jeffrey Goldberg, this smear merchant, this liar. He was the one that came out and said, yeah, he called them suckers and losers. People that died fighting in World War II. American soldiers, veterans who fought and died in World War II. And again, anonymously sourced. Oh, somebody at the meeting told me, but I can't mention their name. 14 people present at the meeting said Trump never said that. Never even came close to saying that. So forgive me. It's the same bull crap again. Jeffrey Goldberg is a paid anti-Trump assassin. The owner of The Atlantic is the widow of Steve Jobs, Lauren Powell Jobs. She's one of the biggest donors to the Democratic Party. In fact, she's close friends with Kamala Harris. The whole thing is pure propaganda. It's a vicious smear and hit piece 2 weeks before the election. And General Kelly, I'm telling you, worked with other people in the deep state to plan all of this, and this is their big October surprise. Say, okay, I'm ready now for the interview. We're going to drop this now. He's Hitler. Well, how do we know he's Hitler? Because he told me he loves Hitler. He has disgraced himself. General Kelly has absolutely disgraced himself. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Russ in Myrtle Beach. Thanks for holding, Russ, and welcome.
Well, I was listening to your show on the phone the past 2 mornings, Jeff, so I hope you'll give me half the time that you'd give to Frank and Gloucester, for example. But I want to go back a little bit on Kelly's background, because you've implied that this backstabbing is a recent phenomenon. It goes way back to 8 years. 8 years back when Kelly was made DHS secretary. You omitted that. And Kelly was so bad, he laid down and played dead for illegal aliens that he had to be kicked upstairs to White House Chief of Staff, replacing the rhino Reince Priebus. I think I'm off the air.
No, you're not off the air. Why would you be off the air? You made an absolutely excellent point. You're dead on. You're absolutely dead on. Now, I do know this for a fact, Russ. You can take this to the bank. And by the way, I know Kelly's listening. I know his people are listening. I know that because I asked him to come on the show. And I've got confirmation now he's not going to come on. And I even told them exactly what I was going to ask him. They know exactly the questions I was going to ask him. And that's why he won't come on. But anyway, let that go. Kelly constantly leaked to the media when he was chief of staff, behind Trump's back. One of the biggest leakers against Trump was General Kelly. And when Trump found out, he said, you're out of here. You're out of here. So he was part of the resistance within the administration. In fact, I know this for a fact because Kelly told me this. Kelly's a Democrat. Kelly opposed most of Trump's policies. Kelly does not want a secure border. General Kelly does not believe in deporting millions of illegal aliens. He doesn't. Kelly is a globalist. Much of what Trump stands for, he disagrees with profoundly, which begs the question, why did you volunteer your services to him? If this is a man whose policies you can't stand, whether it be ending endless wars or redoing these horrible free trade deals or stopping this massive invasion at the border, if you're an open borders, warmongering globalist, that's fine. You have and that's fine. You want to be, he's a Democrat. What he is he's a Hillary Clinton Democrat. Now, you want to be a Hillary Clinton Democrat. It's a free country. But what are you doing serving in Trump's administration? Because he was there to undermine and sabotage Trump from within. And that's literally what he was doing. And he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. I know because I've interacted with him. He thinks he's God's gift to the American people. And so he stands there and is like, you're going to fire me? You're going to let me go when you should be listening to me? So he thought, no, I should be running the Trump administration. And Trump said, no, I'm sorry, man. I don't shill for the military-industrial complex. You're out. You're out. And he was looking to pay back Trump, and I know this for a fact. And they waited, and they waited, and they waited, Russ, until 2 weeks before the election for maximum so-called damage. And boom, that's when the knife came in. Floor is yours, Russ.
Just wondering how Kelly got in there. If the obvious DHS secretary at the time was Jeff Sessions, who talked tough on illegal aliens, on the border security, but Sessions thought he was smart enough to be AG, which clearly he was not. So that was another bad personnel move on Trump's part, and we know how that worked out. But Kelly got in there, and he was supposed to be the tough guy general to secure the border. He laid down and played dead for illegals, and when he was kicked upstairs to chief of staff, he put in Kirsten Nielsen, who was even worse. Now, neither of them were as bad as the Cuban cue ball, but they did nothing. They undermined Trump's border security policy from the get-go, and he had to be fired. And chief of staff, which seemed to be the harmless place to put him, to kick him upstairs, was the move that Trump made after Ryan Priebus was in there.
Yeah, you're right. No, Russ, you're right. It was a lethal move. Because as chief of staff, he hears everything. He sees everything. He's present at every meeting. So there he was, taking notes, looking around, and then he would leak to the Times, leak to the Post, he would be leaking everywhere. Constant source of leaks. And Trump is like, who's leaking all of this confidential information? Now, you got to understand, Trump went to military school. Okay, he went to a military academy. He's of that generation, and his father was the same, where you revere the military. He grew up on tales, and in a way, I don't blame him. I mean, these were phenomenal, fantastic, super worldly generals. MacArthur, Patton, Eisenhower, General George Marshall. I mean, these are some of the greatest generals, literally, in the history of the world. So, he thought, well, hey, I'm going to get American generals in my government. I mean, if you want something done, you ask a general. They're hardworking, they're patriotic, they're efficient, they're loyal, they'll do anything for the country. They cut through red tape, they do what's got to be done, they're mission oriented. So he kept deferring. He had this natural instinct to defer to people like General Mattis, people like General Kelly, and that's why he staffed his early part of his first administration with people like that. But then, as he later himself admitted, he goes, to my shock and horror, I couldn't believe how incompetent many of these people were. And he goes, then it began to dawn on me. These guys aren't General MacArthur. They're not Patton. They're not Eisenhower. They're not Marshall. Some of these are bureaucratic functionaries. They're basically political hacks, but just climb the chain of command in the military. That's all. And he said the one that really shocked him the most was Milley. That Milley's colossal incompetence, he couldn't believe it. He goes, I couldn't believe a guy like that could rise in the military. But to bring it back to what you were saying, so as you put it, they kicked him upstairs, and it was the most dangerous, reckless thing they could have done. It was a disaster, because now Kelly's eyes and ears were everywhere. And when he kept leaking and sabotaging and undermining Trump, and when Trump finally caught him, there's the door. And Kelly's bruised ego, he has never been able to forgive him. So this is what I find most disgusting. He's couching all of this in high-minded principle and patriotism, and for the love of my country, I have to say this, he's going to be Hitler. When in fact, it's the typical swamp Washington game. You're going to fire me? I'm going to pay you back big time. You can't get more petty, more vindictive, more, honestly, more nasty than what Kelly is doing now. He's a bitter, bitter old man who can't stand the fact that Trump fired him. Anyway, Russ, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. So let me ask all of you, in the wake now of this supposed October surprise, General Kelly gives an interview to the New York Times. Kamala Harris calls an emergency press conference. Then she goes on, this is CNN, and says Trump is a fascist. He admires Hitler. He's the textbook definition of a fascist. This is what his own chief of staff or former chief of staff says. And my question now to you, is this a real October surprise? Or is it going to be an absolute dud? All of your calls, all of your reaction next. Hitler, Hitler, Hitler. I mean, that's it. That's your final pitch. He's Hitler. Hitler. She's going down. Oh, man. I mean, this is so pathetic. 720 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, lines are jammed. The text machine, it's, I'm recommending Sandy and Mike stay away because it's going to blow. It is, I mean, red hot. This is from 603. Brilliant point. Jeff, General Kelly is another example of Obama's quote-unquote stay-behind network of saboteurs that were left in place when Trump took office. I hope General John Kelly enjoys his big payout, because I think he's about to get one. Well, I got to tell you, I'm going to get to some of his charges, which are so outlandish. To even put Trump and Hitler in the same breath, you're insane. I mean, you're really just objectively, you're absolutely insane. So whatever they promised him, I hope it was worth it, because his reputation now is in tatters. 617-266-6868. Okay. This is from 202. Jeff, with all due respect, I think you're missing the larger point. The reason why Kamala Harris and the Democratic media are now focusing on Kelly and these allegations by Harris that Trump is going to be the next Adolf Hitler is that their goal is attrition. They only have to peel off a few % of Trump's support and they can win. So what they're really doing, Jeff, is this is a play for the Haley Republicans, the Nikki Haley Republicans, who were planning to vote for Trump but holding their nose. The Democrats have to fracture Trump's base because he is digging into their base. Interesting. So let me ask all of you, just to piggyback off of what 202 just texted. Do you know anybody that is not going to vote for Trump or is just not going to vote? In other words, plague on both their houses because of these allegations now that Trump is a kind of wannabe dictator, he's a fascist, he's the next Adolf Hitler, he's going to, terminate democracy, the Constitution, basically establish the Fourth Reich. Are they working to the point that you notice some people will either hold a lever for Harris or just not vote because of these scurrilous, slanderous accusations? 617-266-6868. And look, we got 12 days left. I think they're going to focus group this for about another 4 or 5 days. And if by the last week this is not gaining any traction, pretty much here's what they have left. He sleeps with pigs or goats, or he molests children. That's it. He's either going to be a child molester or, he likes to roll around in the mud with pigs. Like that untoward relations with pigs. Like that's pretty much what outside of Hitler, that's the only other place you can go. 617-266-6868. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
Well, Jeff, and what upsets any military person who served in the military, whether active now or retired, is a traitor to their country. You could thank him for his service, but he's a traitor to his country. He's a traitor to the former president of the United States, who was his commander-in-chief, and he will again be the commander-in-chief on November 6th. That is the November surprise I want to throw out to Kamala Harris and the rest of the Democratic Communist Party. That is your November surprise. Donald Trump again will be the president of the United States. Let's get into talking about Trump being Hitler and the officers and the generals that he had. Unlike today's military with Milley and others, we don't send our men off in dresses and makeup to fight wars for America. Getting to Trump's ability to be strong. Here is a man that endured 8 years of the mainstream media calling him Hitler, calling him a fascist, saying he is going to take over America and the world. He has gone through multiple lawsuits in Georgia, in New York, while our own government has weaponized those agencies to go after him. And just let me say this, if anything should happen, if justice should continue in the United States of America, Jack Smith, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, each and every one of them should be prosecuted for election interference. And that Judge Method, all right, originally from Colombia, became a United States citizen. If he's ever prosecuted and found guilty, send his ass back to Colombia, where he came from. This country is in very bad shape. I would just like to parallel this to what's happening overseas.
CJ, do me a favor. I'm up against it. Hang on. I'm going to come right back to you. And so CJ now says that General Kelly betrayed his commander-in-chief, betrayed his country, and in many ways is a traitor to his country. Do you agree? 731 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. I just got a really good text from 617. I'm going to go back to CJ, I promise. But just 617 says, Jeff, if General Kelly in 2 weeks before the election, because apparently the interview was done 2 days ago, is now going to make these explosive, inflammatory, frankly reckless allegations and accusations against Trump. Shouldn't he at least sit down with one member of the conservative media and be probed and be asked certain questions? You know, it's like the right to a cross-examination. You know, it's not just the prosecution that gets to ask questions. The defense gets to ask questions as well. Well, that's why I invited General Kelly to come on. And as I said, in the past, he's been on this show multiple times. I know him personally. We've had, to be fair, very cordial, very pleasant conversations in the past. And he was always willing to come on. Not this time. Not this time. And I think that's extremely telling. Now, look, he's a man who served his country. He's a man who volunteered to fight in Vietnam. I have nothing but the highest respect for him as a military man, as a warrior, as someone who served our country. Nothing but the highest respect for him, especially in the wake of the fact that he lost his son in Iraq. So please don't take this the wrong way. But intellectually, I think he's being a coward. Not personally, far from it, not militarily. He's got more courage in his pinky than I'll ever have. But intellectually, I think he's being a coward. He should come on this show and answer certain basic questions. And I'll give you one of the most basic questions of all. How is it suddenly Hitler-like or an admirer of Hitler to state the most obvious facts that, yes, Hitler had some successes as Chancellor of Germany? This is not a provocative opinion. Hitler was a genocidal monster responsible for World War II and the deaths of 50 million people. No question. One of the great genocidal monsters of human history. But if you want, I can cite you Ian Kershaw, his most famous biographer, Alan Bullock, Ulrich Wollrich, one of the biggest biographers of Hitler. Every major Hitler biographer, they're not Nazis. They're not Hitler admirers. They're the top scholars in their field. Most of them actually politically liberal, if you want to know the truth. Ian Kershaw says the reason why Hitler was able to skyrocket to popularity in Germany was because he curbed inflation, which he did, and unleashed massive government Keynesian-style economics, public works, building roads, building bridges, creating the Volkswagen, giving paid vacations to workers, that in fact was picked up by FDR's New Deal. I'm sure Kelly's a big admirer of Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal. FDR's New Deal, much of it was based off of Hitler. In Western Europe, most governments said, wow, how Hitler has turned around Germany's economy is something we need to imitate. Now, does that justify starting World War II? Of course not. Does it mean you have the right to butcher and slaughter 6 million Jews? Of course not. But the fact of the matter is, when Donald Trump says, yeah, actually Hitler did have some successes, and yes, it's historically, factually accurate. It doesn't mean you admire Hitler, you moron, you imbecile. Here, Stalin was a brilliant man. He was. He read 2 books a day. How do you think you manage an empire like that? With an IQ of 10? He was a brilliant general who was instrumental in breaking Hitler's back, especially in 1943, 1944. His crash industrialization of the Soviet Union probably helped Russia win the war. Now, does that justify massacring and murdering 20 million people? Of course not. But to say that Stalin didn't have some successes, you're an idiot. Every biographer points that out. What I'm saying is, We are dealing now with such a dumbed down state of our country that they've turned Hitler into like this cardboard caricature, like for a fifth grade, seriously, for a 6-year-old. I was going to say fifth grader, but even fifth graders have a more sophisticated knowledge. And by the way, yes, I can cite you biography after biography after biography. By the way, I can even cite to you Eisenhower himself, Patton himself, MacArthur himself. Hitler had some of the best generals of the war. Even Hollywood did a movie about Rommel. Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, who, by the way, was a great general. Was he on the wrong side? Of course. Am I happy the Nazis lost? Of course. But what are we now? We're going to deny Rommel? Guderian. Here, Lawrence Rees. The definitive book now on Hitler and Stalin, okay? It's a masterpiece. You should read it. Rees is a liberal to his core. In the book says Guderian was maybe the greatest tank commander in military history. By the way, if Hitler had listened to Guderian, he probably would have won the war. Okay, but let that go. So Guderian now wasn't this brilliant general? So to say, hey, Hitler had some really great generals. Hitler. Oh, he's going to be a fascist. Dictatorship. Honestly, pathetic. Pathetic. Let's go back to CJ. CJ, are you still there? We lost CJ? Okay, well, sorry. All right, sorry about that there, Sandy. 617-266-6868 is the number. So now, one last point. Donald Trump as president. Okay, never mind, he never sent anyone to jail. He never charged anyone with a crime. He never went after his political opponents, ever, 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 ever. Not one journalist, not one judge, Hillary Clinton, I could go on. Nothing happened. They just got fired. That's it. Comey got fired. That's it. There's your Hitler, okay? But furthermore, he wanted to end wars. Hitler wanted to start wars. Hitler was a militarist. Hitler wanted to invade country after country after country after country. This is a man who was pulling us out of Afghanistan. This is a man who said, he didn't start a single war. This is a man who brought peace in the Middle East and had the Arabs and Israel sign a peace accord. This is a man who, rather than reviling the Jews and calling for the mass extermination of the Jews, in fact, literally, you can see him with rabbis. He moved the capital of Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. His daughter is Jewish. His grandchildren are Jewish. They love him in Israel. He was the most pro-Israel president in American history. He's a Semitophile. He's an open admirer and lover of the Jews. This guy's Hitler? You're effing crazy. You're effing crazy. You're so historically ignorant. It should be an embarrassment. And by the way, Hitler thought less of the Arabs. Hitler had a whole view of racial supremacy. If Trump had a drop of Hitlerian blood in him, you know what he would have said? All the way with the Iraq War. Kill as many Iraqis, kill as many Arabs as possible. He was the one that opposed the Iraq War, opposed the wars in the Middle East. And you're going to tell me that just because he makes an obvious point that Hitler built autobahns, public works, tamed inflation, boosted German industry and productivity to the point that Germany became an economic powerhouse under him, which is why they became so lethal and so dangerous? So for Trump to say, Hitler had some successes, suddenly, It's beyond desperate. It's beyond pathetic. And I'm telling you, only in a country where you no longer teach history, only in a country where people are so dumbed down because of education that anything like this could even pass or fly, they should be laughed off the TV screens. Trump is Hitler? You're an idiot. I'm telling you, that should be our response. What Trump is, you're an idiot. Next. You're an idiot. Next. So, my question to you, will this hurt Trump in the election? Is this now the October surprise that will sink Trump? This is what the Democrats are saying. And will this move certain independents and moderate Republicans to vote for Kamala? Will this strategy pay off? Your call's next. 7:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, we're announcing a new policy here on the Kuhner Report from this moment forward. We are not going to be holding any calls over. I've been doing this for over 10 years. I'm the only one, I believe, that does it in the whole business. And it's just not worth the headache. I'm just telling you it's not. It's just, you wouldn't believe the constant drama off air because I decide to hold a call over. Or I hold a call over and I get a text and I go on a riff or a take on a text and somebody is, I've let them speak for like 2-3 minutes. And by the way, nobody lets callers speak as long as I do. When I used to fill in for Michael Savage on a regular basis, the iron rule was 30 seconds. I let people talk for 2.5-3 minutes because I want to get them a chance to really make their point. Because I believe we're a family and it's like almost a kitchen table. So I don't want to rush people. And sometimes I like to hold people over because I feel they haven't quite made their point yet. But in all honesty, it's been 10 years and it's not worth the stress, the constant pressure, the constant drama of, what is my crime? I held somebody over. It's not worth it. I'm telling you, it's not worth the headaches. So from this point forward, say what you got to say. If I'm up against a break, you're going to get dumped. And don't blame me. Don't blame me. This is people who think they know how to do a radio show. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from 703, 70470, 70470, 703. Jeff, you want to know the difference between Hitler and Trump? It's very simple. Hitler wrote Mein Kampf. Trump wrote Art of the Deal. Case closed. Brilliant. Brilliant. Mike in Florida. Thanks for holding, Mike, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Mike?
I'm great down here in Florida. Quick shout out to your producer, Mike. He and I used to work together in another capacity a long time ago. He's a good guy.
Okay.
I just wanted to give you my perspective. I grew up an Army brat and lived in Springfield, Virginia, where my dad worked at the Pentagon. He was a brigadier general who fought in World War II. The Germans shot at him. He shot at the Germans. The Battle of the Bulge, blah, blah, blah. But I'm really disappointed in Mr. Kelly. And I know that's disparaging to call him Mr. Kelly. He's General Kelly. But I'm really dismayed at the actions he's made. A political opinion is one thing, right? And that's okay. But to come out against your former commander-in-chief, I find, they're very disparaging to the former commander-in-chief, and hopefully he'll be the next one.
Well, Mike, I agree with you, but I would even go a step further, and you may disagree with me on this, and it's fine. To me, that's what the purpose of the show is, for people to have honest disagreements. I don't really mind if I know it's not done in the military. It goes historically against tradition. Generals in particular should be nonpartisan and not weigh in on politics. And I respect that. I have immense respect for the military and that tradition. But I'll be brutally honest with you. If a general comes out and says, I'm endorsing such and such a candidate, and gives a paragraph why, I'm not really offended by that. I'm not. If it's a current general, no, they should not come out with any public endorsement. You have to be nonpartisan. But if you're a retired general, and Kelly now is a retired general, and if he came out and said, hey, look, I think Kamala Harris would be a better leader for America. I disagree strongly, but, it's a free country. It's the way he did it, and it's what he said. Is that he waited for 2 weeks before the election. This was all pre-planned. And then he comes out, as Bruce in Woburn said, his father actually fought Hitler. We never even mentioned Hitler in the home. I'm going to be brutally honest with you, Mike. My family, half of my family, were literally wiped out by the Nazis. Okay? We hate the guy. I can't tell you how much we hate him. My grandfather spent 1.5 years in a Nazi concentration camp. We never mentioned Hitler in our home. And the reason why we never mentioned Hitler in our home is because there are some things people do that are unspeakably evil. So you don't compare anybody to Hitler. The stories that my grandfather told me about what he endured at that concentration camp and what he saw and the people that were butchered and slaughtered and the way they were butchered and slaughtered, I will take with me to my grave. So when you start going down this road of calling this guy Hitler and that guy Hitler, and we do it now more and more. I remember when I first heard this, it was in the 80s, when liberals were then calling Reagan Hitler. And I was like, what? That's almost obscene. Now, the difference then, and I'm going to be brutally honest with you, Mike, okay? Again, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but if I'm not here to speak the truth behind the microphone, then what's the point of me being behind the mic? There were still many Holocaust survivors. And they said, you don't call anybody Hitler because you're spitting on the graves of all those who died in Auschwitz and in Treblinka and in Buchenwald. There is no Hitler but Hitler. And when you talk about Hitler, he's in a category with Stalin or Mao Zedong or Pol Pot or Mussolini, some of the most monstrous, genocidal mass murderers in human history. Beyond evil. Beyond, really, things that are, that are almost unspeakable. So there was tremendous pushback, but they slowly began to die off. And now there's very few, if any, Holocaust survivors left. And we don't know history. We just don't. Kelly's, giving that interview saying, oh, Trump is ignorant of history. No, you're ignorant of history. You're pathetically ignorant of history. I'm sorry, you're an imbecile when it comes to history. And then I began, they called Bush 41 for the war in Iraq Hitler. Then he began to call Saddam Hitler. And then they called Osama bin Laden Hitler. And then every time we go to war, I remember Gaddafi, Hitler. They want to go to war with Syria, Bashar Assad, Hitler. Everybody's freaking Hitler now. They've cheapened the word. They've cheapened the experience of what really happened. So I urge people, pick up Ian Kershaw's biography. It's a great read. Read Alan Bullock, Hitler, A Study in Tyranny. You read that book. First of all, you're going to come out and say, Hitler was one of the most consequential people of the 20th century. To this day, we are living in his shadow on so many levels. As I told Grace last night, just the way that we politically campaign, just that little slither, Hitler. Hitler started modern political campaigning. Taking a plane and going city to city and city and doing rallies. There was the Nazis that invented that. Just to give you a small example, the way to use radio and technology as a form of propaganda, which is now all over the world. Who do you think started it? The Nazis. Now, it doesn't mean you admire them. It doesn't mean you're a supporter of Hitler, you idiot. But it's you acknowledge things are complex. Things are multidimensional. You know, we're not all 4-year-olds who have to watch a cartoon and have a bad guy in a hat and a good guy in a white hat and, you know, go evil, 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 evil. So this, you know, this, for Kelly to say that what Trump was stating is an historical fact. Just as if I said Stalin was a genius. Yeah. He was also a monster. But he was a genius. There's no question. And Stalin had significant accomplishments. Of course. Churchill couldn't break Hitler's back. De Gaulle couldn't break Hitler's back. It was Stalin and the Red Army that broke Hitler's back. And in many ways, it's because of Stalin's generalship. Now, am I admirer of Joseph Stalin? No. The man was a genocidal mass killer on a scale unimaginable. My grandfather spent 3 years in a communist concentration camp. He told me horror stories of that. We never spoke Stalin's name in our home because of the horrors of the Gulag. So what I'm saying is, Mike, for General Kelly, and this is a military man who knows about war and knows about the horrors of war, you serve under a president who broke the back of ISIS when they were slaughtering millions of Christians. The only thing that came close to Nazism in my lifetime was ISIS. And Trump destroyed them. An arch supporter of the Jews and Israel. A man who opposed the Iraq War. A man who opposes every single war and wanted to even get us out of Afghanistan. A man who made peace between the Arabs and the Jews. A man who's running as a peace candidate and was a peace president. And you're going to call him Hitler? Buddy, how the hell did you ever become a general? I'm sorry, but I've got to say it. And you're a general? Let me just say one other thing, Mike, because this is what opened Trump's eyes. That's why in his second administration, you're going to see, outside of Michael Flynn, you're going to see very few generals in his administration. He goes, I grew up idolizing these people. Then I began to get to know them in government. He goes, I couldn't believe it. Trump tells this story of Milley. Milley made a proposal to Trump that he made to Biden that Biden eventually would follow through on. Biden accepted it. Trump wouldn't. Milley tells Trump, we got to pull out right away out of Afghanistan. All out. Just pull out everything. And he then tells Trump, leave all of our military technology behind. All of it. Including Bagram Air Base, which is what they did under Biden. And Trump is looking at him, dumbfounded, thunderstruck. Like he was, I can't believe this is coming out of it. We've been there 20 years. Thousands of Americans dead. We've plunked trillions of dollars into that country. And this guy with a straight face is telling me we should hand over our most sophisticated military and technology to our mortal enemies? And Milley says, yeah, it'll be less expensive if we just leave it all there. And first of all, Trump says, how is it less expensive? That's $85 billion. What does it cost? 5, 6, 700 million to pull all this back? And then it dawns, obviously, on Trump. This idiot doesn't know how to do a proper withdrawal. He literally, unlike Eisenhower, for example, who was brilliant at logistics, maybe the most brilliant military man when it came to organization and logistics. He goes, he can't do the basic organizing and logistics to get our military properly pulled out of Afghanistan while still securing Bagram Air Base. The man is an idiot. He's literally an idiot. And so Trump says to him in front of everybody, that's why Milley can't stand him. I'll tell you what it was. Trump looked at him in front of this room. There were generals there, others. And he said, quote unquote, I got to leave out the swearing, quote unquote, and you're an effing general? You come to me with this joke of a withdrawal proposal? He's like, his eyes are, Trump is red in the face. We're going to hand over everything to the Taliban? We're going to hand over everything to the Russians and the Chinese? This is your effing plan? And you're an effing general? Get out. Get out. And Milley left with his tail between his legs. And that's why the parade general never won a battle in his life. All those medals on his chest. Look at Eisenhower. Look at Patton. Look at MacArthur. Look at Marshall. Look at pictures of them. Maybe one medal, maybe two medals. And then you look beside them. Battle, battle, battle. All the battles that they won. This guy, he's got 100 medals on his chest. He never won one freaking battle in his life. And that's when it dawned on Trump. These guys are completely incompetent. And so he and his team put together their own withdrawal plan. And it was phased and bit by bit with conditions. It was a conditional withdrawal with the Taliban. That's when he spoke to the Taliban leader and famously showed him the picture of the guy's village. And said, here's your home. Here it is. Here's your home. Here's the home of all your relatives. You kill one American soldier, just one, and it's all gone. It's all gone. You understand that? You'll never see any member of your family again. And he said, for 1 year, not one American soldier died. Now, he upstaged Milley. He exposed Milley. He rightly shamed Milley. That's why Milley's on a vendetta to get him. So, Mike, long answer to your question. You never invoke Adolf Hitler, especially if you're a military man. And you do that knowing how inflammatory it is, because Sandy on this is completely right. She is completely right. What they're doing now is they're just intensifying the rebellion against Trump when they lose. What he's doing, what Kelly is doing, is yelling fire in a crowded theater. That's what he's doing. And for what? Because you got fired? Because you got promoted way beyond your capability? This guy should never have been a general. This guy should never have been a DHS secretary. He was a disaster. This guy was a disaster as a chief of staff. And then you get, he didn't lose his pension. He didn't lose anything. He just lost his job. But because your ego is wounded, your pride is bruised, you wait until 14 days before an election and maybe say the most incendiary thing you could possibly say, and you call yourself a patriot? Mike, I have lost all respect for that man. And I'm telling you, if he came on this show, which he won't, and he knows this, I said, I'll read to you I'll read you a passage out of Ian Kershaw's biography. I'll read you a passage out of all these other biographers of Hitler. And what, are they Nazis too now? And that's why he wouldn't come on, because I confront him with the facts. But if he came on my show, I would tell him right to his face. Right to his face. Final word to you, Mike.
Yes, sir. Just that, I, again, being a military brat and having my dad kind of guide me through the process, I went to Valley Forge Military Academy, and, there's a decorum, for lack of a better word, and I just saw Mr. Kelly break that decorum. Political opinion, again, to repeat myself, is one thing. You can have your political opinion, that's great, but the facts are the facts. And just very disappointed that, again, this guy with a decorated chest on his uniform, and God bless him for serving the country, but, there's attacking he's attacking his own country at this point.
I agree. I completely agree, Mike. Mike, and again, God bless you and thank you. And look, he beclowned himself. I'm sorry, but that's the only word that comes to mind. You've now turned yourself into a clown, a media clown. I know he's getting something out of it. obviously, and I hope he enjoys his retribution. But I'm telling you right now, you're being used by the media, and he's being used by the Democratic Party. And honestly, he should be ashamed of himself. 617-266-6868. Chuck in Dighton. Thanks for holding, Chuck, and welcome.
Who do you think that's going to be?
Chuck, are you there? All right, let's go to Curtis in the great state of Virginia. Thanks for holding, Curtis, and welcome.
Good morning, sir, and how are you doing today?
Good.
Well, I'm doing good, too. I'm on the right side of the grass. There's no dirt on me, so I'm doing very well.
Look, what's on your mind, Curtis?
You know, what's going on right now? You heard that book called Rules for Radicals?
Yes, Saul Alinsky's book. Yes, I've read it.
Yes. But this is what the Democratic Party is doing. Hillary was a disciple of his. Obama was a disciple of his. So they're using everything that's in that book of how to circumvent the people's liberties and things like that. But the point I'm trying to make is they're doing what they claim Trump will be doing. They're actually doing. You say this all the time. They're doing what they say other people are doing. And what's her name? Kamala. She is a tool of the deep state. You can tell that she doesn't have a thought in her brain unless it comes off a piece of paper or a teleprompter. And on top of that, being a Democrat, why would any black person be a Democrat when they were the ones that created the Ku Klux Klan, all these segregationist rules, and on top of that, Kamala, her family, her background was slavers, and nobody talks about that. But this is what I wanted to share with you. Trump,
you're dead on. Look, Curtis, on every point, the party of the Confederacy, I mean, it's a fact, were the Democratic Party. The party of slavery were the Democrats. The party of Jim Crow, the party of segregation, were the Democrats. The party of the KKK were Democrats. And Kamala Harris's family in Jamaica were not just one of the biggest slave owners, they were one of the biggest slave traders. So they trafficked primarily in black slavery. And she, by the way, is now saying she's open now to reparations. And I'm thinking, you're open to reparations? Well, you better start cutting a big check, because that was you and your family. So to me, look, and just look at everywhere the Democrats have been in power, especially in some of the big cities for 50, 60, 70 years. Look at how the poor African-American population, what have they had to deal with in those places? They haven't helped them. They've ruined them. And Trump is saying, give me a chance. Because the last time he was president, everybody's wages went up. I get it. But black wages went up. Take-home pay went up. Black entrepreneurship, black businesses went up. Crime in predominantly black areas went down. He was one of the best friends African Americans, black Americans have ever had. And that's why he is getting so much more support, and Kamala is bleeding black men. 820 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, very quickly, a text line is on fire. You can text us 70470. This is from 802. Jeff, as to General Kelly, let me remind Kuhner Country that Benedict Arnold was also a decorated general in the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. He served this country as well before he sold this country out for his own personal interests. Interesting. This is from Dave on Messenger. Jeff, CJ is 1,000% right. General Kelly got his 30 pieces of silver. So many of you are saying that Kelly is being a Judas for what he's doing to Donald Trump. 617-266-6868. Sandy made a very interesting point off air. She said, you know, Jeff, this is a great angle for the audience, and I agree with her. Is Kamala really projecting onto Trump what she, Obama, and the Democrats want to do when they win, or if they win in November? I mean, when you stand back, who is the one that is calling for people to be sent into re-education camps? That was Hillary Clinton. Who is the one that has purged the military completely and demanded loyalty to them? You know, Milley is an Obama hack. General Kelly is a diehard Democrat and somebody who openly, repeatedly sabotaged Trump, as I said, leaking to the media when he was chief of staff under Trump. So they've purged the generals and put in loyalists to them. So who's asking for the military to bend the knee? It's not Trump. It's Obama, Biden, and now Kamala. Who's pushing for censorship? Kamala. Who's pushing now for an end to the First Amendment? Kamala. Who are the ones calling now for their political opponents, all of their top opponents, to be jailed? Kamala on both Trump and Elon. Biden on Trump, Elon, all of the January 6ers. Steve Bannon is still rotting in jail. Peter Navarro is still rotting in jail. So, Navarro's out of jail now, is he? I thought they had him locked up. No, Mike, I think then he was sent to prison. Yeah, I mean, maybe you and Sandy can check on that. I think they coordinated it that he only comes out the day of the election. I could be wrong. You may be right, Mike. But anyway, the point is they locked him up. Okay, let's just... He's out now, right? Navarro's out? Okay, so Navarro is out. So I misspoke. Thank you, Mike. All right, so Bannon is still in jail. I know that. So Navarro is out. But my point is they locked him up. So who's looking to put their opponents in jail? It's them. Who's suppressing, canceling, and censoring speech? It's them. Who's calling for permanent one-party rule? It's them. Who's forming a corporatist state, really, which is a fascist state, whereby big technology, big labor, big media, big business work together with an all-powerful big government state? It's them. So I think really Sandy hit the nail on the head. What you're seeing now is classic projection. Who's weaponized the Justice Department? They have. Who's weaponized the intelligence community to go after their political opponents and to spy on their opponents? Them. So I look at everything the Democrats have been doing and what they plan to do. And it's not Hitler, far from it. It's not Nazism, far from it. But you want to talk about a textbook definition of fascism, which is what Kelly accused Trump of. How is this not fascism? And now they're paving the way to reject and block Trump's election should he win. I'm sorry, but they should look in the mirror. Agree, disagree. Mark in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, buddy. Good morning.
Mark, go ahead, my friend. We got 90 seconds.
All right, here we go. Okay, yes, tons of violence after the election. You're going to see unprecedented levels, but you're also going to see, Jeff, a lot of false flags. You're going to hear about all these death threats to Democrat lawmakers, all these alleged phone calls they're getting about how they're going to die on day one. And you know the one group, Jeff, you're not talking about? The UN. How long do you think they're going to sit there while they're going to come out and they're going to say, what we're seeing is reminiscent of 1930s Germany, and the UN wasn't there to stop Adolf Hitler from taking over and starting World War II, but the UN is here now, and we cannot, in good conscience, sit back and allow someone like Donald Trump to take control of the United States, the most powerful military in the world, and have his finger on the nuclear button, Jeff, it's going to be too destabilizing. The UN is going to call for the government of the United States to not certify this election, Jeff. And they're going to run with this for 2 months straight.
You're a genius. You're a genius. I'm telling you, you're a genius. That's going to be the ultimate play of the globalists. Block Trump, delay Trump, foment as much rebellion and insurrection as possible, and then call in the UN. 8:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Okay. This is from 803. You can text us 70470, 70470. And 803 is completely correct about rules for radicals. Jeff, it's not projection. In fact, it's a tried and true tactic. In Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky, it states explicitly, and this is true, that you accuse your opponent of what you're planning as a means to vaccinate, that's the term, quote unquote, vaccinate yourself against criticism. The left knows exactly what they're doing. Well, that's why they're accusing Trump of fascism. Because then if they do it, in a sense, it gives them it's sort of an armor plate, a bulletproof vest, saying, no, that's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. That's what he wants to do. Meanwhile, just look exactly at what they've been doing and what they're planning to do. Listen now to Kamala Harris. This was her at the CNN town hall with Anderson Cooper. Roll cut. Notice now she's using Kelly and Milley. So she's using now these two former retired generals to now go after Trump and paint him as a wannabe fascist dictator. Roll cut 5, Mike.
He who has openly admired dictators said he would be a dictator on day one. The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has said he is a fascist to the core. So I think that when the American people reflect, especially those who are undecided, on who you should listen to, don't take my word for it. In fact, go online and listen to John Kelly, his voice, talking about what he thinks of Donald Trump 2 weeks before the election.
Now notice that. 2 weeks before the election. This sense of the urgency now, like he's trying to warn us before it's too late. According to Kelly, he had these opinions of Trump when he served under him. That's what I'm just going by what he said in the New York Times interview. And then what he later told CNN and what he later told Jim Scudo on CNN. He's like, I couldn't believe the stuff that was coming out of Trump's mouth. He's a Hitler admirer. Listen now to Kelly. I played the cut. I want to play it again. Played it earlier. This is him talking to Jim Scudo, rabid anti-Trumper, maybe the most rabid on CNN. And that's really saying something for his upcoming book. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
He commented more than once that, that Hitler did some good things too. And of course, if you know history, again, I think he's lacking in that. But if you know what Hitler was all about, it'd be pretty hard to make an argument that he did anything good.
I see. I told Kelly's people this. Then he's got to discuss this. He's got to refute every single biographer of Adolf Hitler, and none of them like Hitler. They all despise Hitler. So I can't find anything good about him. So what? You think the Germans are all a bunch of absolute zombie robot morons? He's destroying us, but we will vote for him. He's destroying us, but we will support him. Yeah, maybe on Bugs Bunny, maybe on some cartoon network. But why do you think? As Ian Kershaw said in his biography, he solved the unemployment crisis in Germany. He solved the inflation crisis in Germany people all over Europe, including the New Dealers, were saying, what the hell is this guy doing? We got to do the same thing. Now, again, to repeat for the 60th time, because you have these stupid liberals. Hey, Kuhner's an admirer of Hitler. No, they killed half my family. Idiot, as the Russians would say. Idiot. But what do you think gave Nazism its dynamism? Why do you think it had so many proponents and supporters? Because they believed it was the wave of the future. And frankly, many liberals and the Democratic Party, and Dinesh D'Souza has a brilliant book on this, where he says much of the Democratic New Deal, much of modern liberalism actually copies good parts of Nazism, because they looked at Hitler and they said, this is the man of the future. Now, Kelly's never read I guarantee you, he's never read a biography of Hitler in his life. I bet he couldn't even, if I gave him an exam now and said, in 2 paragraphs, explain to me Adolf Hitler. He killed 6 million Jews, I do know that. Bad guy. Evil guy, bad guy, started World War II, bad. F. That would be my grade. So, you see, Trump's mind is a little too sophisticated for you, General Kelly. And by the way, Trump, I'm just on the merits, I'm challenging him. Okay, on the merits. And by the way, you know, I spoke about Stalin having many successes. Of course, a genocidal mass murderer and being a brilliant man. Mao Zedong, who do you think invented modern revolutionary guerrilla war? It was Mao. Power flows from the barrel of a gun. That was Mao. Who do you think was viciously fighting the Japanese, the Imperial Japanese in World War II? It was Mao. The Viet Cong that fought our boys in the jungles of Vietnam. Who do you think they used as their model for guerrilla warfare? It was Mao Zedong. Now, he murdered over 40 million Chinese. He's a monster. Don't tell me the guy's not a brilliant man. Don't tell me he didn't have smashing successes. How do you think he came to power? How do you think he ruled China with an iron fist? Like, we're dealing with children. Seriously, man. Now, but let that go, okay? Let that go. Mark Esper, who has been a staunch Trump critic, its former acting defense secretary, came out and said, I was at those conversations with Kelly. Trump never said he admired Hitler. This is pure 1,000% bull. You know what? It's bull crap. It never happened. So even what Kelly is saying is an absolute lie. Never mind about supposedly Trump. What Trump said is what everybody says. Boy, you know, Hitler had some really good generals there. Esper says, he never said, I want generals that will bend the knee to me. I want generals that won't obey the Constitution or have their loyalty to America, but to me, the Fuhrer. How do these people sleep with themselves at night? Is this all you have now? 12 days left. You can't talk about the border. You have no vision on that. You can't talk about inflation. You can't talk about the economy. You can't talk how we're going to make people's lives better. Instead, you've gone down the mother of all rabbit holes. And here it is. I'm going to play it. This is the line that everybody will remember about the 2024 election and how absolutely crazed, insane the Democrats, Kamala, and the media have become. This is now the ultimate in Trump derangement syndrome. It is a derangement, underline D, derangement, unhinged, deranged, a loco, crazy. Here it is. The silver-haired guy, Anderson Cooper. Roll cut 5A. This was a CNN town hall. Roll cut 5A, Mike.
You've quoted General Milley calling Donald Trump a fascist. You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted. Again, look at their careers. These are not people, with the exception, I think, of only Mike Pence. These were not politicians. These are career people who have served in the highest roles in national security, who have served as generals in our military, who are highly respected. Talking about the person who would be commander-in-chief.
Yeah, take another toke, huh? No, really. Have another one. Hey, Kamala, drinky, drinky, drinky. Have another one, Kamala. Okay? Because you got to be seriously stoned and seriously drunk if you believe this garbage. Chuck in Dighton. Thanks for holding, Chuck, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Chuck?
Jeff, listen to you this morning. I mean, it just amazes me. I mean, obviously what they're doing, it's a Hail Mary pass. We all know that. And for the people to believe, for anybody to believe with a head on their shoulders that this is true, you have to be an idiot. If you take politics out of the scenario, and if you just talk about normal human things that go on throughout the day, then obviously this would be slander. There'd be lawsuits, defamation of character. Like, how do you prove what she's saying? It's just hearsay, which is untrue. So obviously, if you have that brain on your head, you know what they're trying to do. They're doing whatever they can. They do not want him to come into power. And they're setting
Well, they're setting it up now and that's my big fear. They're setting it up now for violence after the election. They're trying to say we can't certify because he's Hitler. 8:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. All right, this is what it's now come to, my friends. Their big last October surprise. Here it is. They got Kelly to go after Trump in an interview with the New York Times. They got the Atlantic to write a vicious, uncorroborated hit piece on Trump, talking about a fallen U.S. service member. She, Vanessa Gualin is her name, or Gualen, and she was killed at Fort Hood, bludgeoned to death by another soldier. President Trump felt very sorry for what happened to her and her family and volunteered to pay for her funeral costs. In fact, had the family over to the White House. Well, Jeffrey Goldberg, the same guy who came up with that lying piece, the made-up story about Trump calling our veterans who died in World War II losers and suckers, or suckers and losers, came out now and said that Trump in private said, why should I pay $60,000 to bury an effing Mexican? Well, it turns out that's not true. People who were there in the room during that conversation, over a dozen of them, have now come out and said that Trump never, ever said that. Moreover, the family, the sister of the fallen service member, Vanessa Guillen, came out and said that is an absolute lie. Trump paid for the funeral, and not only did he pay for the funeral, but that he has honored our family and been nothing but gracious, compassionate, and loving throughout the entire time. That's why I just voted for him, said the sister of Vanessa Guillen. So they're saying the whole piece is an absolute lie in the Atlantic. Everything is a lie in the Atlantic. You know the old expression, throw enough mud on the wall, you hope some of it sticks? Well, that's what they're trying to do to Trump now. Listen now to Kamala Harris. She had to call an emergency press conference yesterday. The whole media was there. She didn't take a single question. But she said now, after the revelations of Kelly, we now are on the brink of the Fourth Reich. Listen now to Kamala. Roll cut 2A, Mike.
And let's be clear. about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify, in his mind, as the enemy within, like judges, like journalists, like nonpartisan election officials.
And then she said, in particular, he's going to order the military to go after American citizens, anyone who disagrees with him, anyone who opposes him. He's going to create now a Nazi police state with the military acting as essentially his SS. Roll cut 2, Mike.
He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens.
So there you go. There you go. Now, this is what RFK Jr. said, okay, in a speech, and I want to read it to you, because he responded to Kamala Harris. These absolute lies. Every single one of them. No evidence for this whatsoever. They're just now making this up as they go along. As Chuck and Dighton said, this, to a private citizen, this is naked slander, libel, defamation. If this was said about you or me, we're talking multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Easy. Okay, I could retire. If this was even said about me, I could retire. This is what RFK Jr. said. He's 1,000% correct. Quote, Vice President Harris said today in her speech that President Trump was going to turn the U.S. military against the American public. What's interesting to me is that the Biden-Harris administration did something 2 weeks ago that has never been done in American history. Now, we've talked about this, but here's RFK now confirming it, which is to send a directive to the Pentagon changing a law to make it legal for the U.S. military to use lethal force against American citizens on American soil. Technically now, it is legal for the U.S. military under this directive to shoot and kill Americans who engage in political protest because they disagree with policies in the White House. This did not come from Donald Trump. It came from the Democratic Party. And that's why I left the Democratic Party. Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals. Accuse your political opponents, your political enemies. He calls them enemies. Accuse your political enemies of what you are doing. The only one that is planning to unleash the military against American citizens is them. This is irrefutable. They wrote the directive. They ordered the directive. They changed the law. And this is why Trump is shaking his head. He's looking around saying, everything they accuse me of, they're guilty of. This is incredible. Now, let me ask all of you this. Because Mark Esper came out, again, former acting Secretary of Defense. I could go on. Many others came out. Esper is the most important because he is a staunch critic of Trump. And he came out and said, look, I don't like the guy. I'm not going to vote for the guy. But this is all a pile of lies. These are all obvious, blatant, not even close. We go, not even close. We go, kind of, not really, a little bit. It's all a pack of lies. I was in those meetings, those conversations. He never called her an effing Mexican. He never said he wasn't going to pay for her funeral. He never said that he admired Hitler. He never said that I want generals just like Hitler's generals. He never said any of that. Like it's bull, it's bull crap. It's just pure bull crap. So she has now been debunked. Everything she said now has been thoroughly discredited. So the question I have, and this is the mother log I'm going to put on the fire right now. After yesterday's press conference, where she makes these explosive, to me, reckless, dangerous allegations now against Trump, who ends up being hurt more? Is it Trump, as they're trying to tattoo H on his forehead or a Nazi swastika on his forehead? Or is it Kamala? Because it's all been one massive lie. Does it hurt her more and her credibility and showing her to be pathetically desperate and willing now to lie and slander and smear in order to try to frighten or shame enough people or scare enough people into voting for her? Or will these allegations hurt Trump? Who is hurt more, Trump or Kamala? Scott in Revere. Thanks for holding, Scott, and welcome.
Jeff, I love you in a non-sexual way, my friend. There it is.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Buddy, what do you make of all this, my friend?
All right. Jeff, Savage said liberalism is a mental disorder. But I finally know what the disorder is. Trump derangement syndrome. It's really that simple. I mean, that's all you hear them talking about is Trump, Hitler, Trump, Hitler, Trump, Hitler. And, the funny part of the whole thing is, do you remember when Joe Biden was going to send the military to the border to fight our own people? You remember that?
Yes.
To secure the border?
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes.
Well, it don't get any more military, using the military for your own benefit than that, does it?
Well, Scott, that's very true. And Kelly made the same thing. Kelly made the exact same point. Kelly and Milley both said he's going to misuse the military. And they're like, well, how? Well, he's thinking of sending the military to protect our southern border. So he goes, technically you're using the military on American soil, and you just, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. And I'm thinking, so let me get this straight. We have a massive border invasion, and we're not supposed to use the military to stop it? Scott, if our military is not here to stop an invasion, then what the hell is it here for? Am I wrong?
But correct, as you say, Jeff. And you've been on fire all morning, man. I'll tell you, wow, you are some ball of knowledge, man. I'll tell you, I can't keep up. Everything I want to say, it's like, wow, you just said that. Wow, you just said that. It's amazing. You know what I mean? It's really
Scott, buddy, let me ask you this, because I think this is now, we got 12 days left. I think Trump's going to win. I think, to me, this is all panic. You can see it. They're in full panic. They don't know what to do now. They're imploding. She's not making an argument why you should vote for her. When she's pointing the finger and saying Hitler, 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 they're behind, way behind. But I want to ask you this, Scott. Who do you think in the end, not you, you're a well-informed guy, this audience, very well-informed, to the average person on the street, this is what they're now hearing. Does this hurt Trump more, or does it hurt Kamala more?
That is a great question, and I'm going to tell you. I'm going to say it's going to balance out, and I'll tell you why. Because the elderly, they really all they do is listen to the news. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of elderly, that's what they do. They listen to the news, and they go by what they hear. So she's scaring the bejesus out of our elderly right now, and not thinking twice about it. Now, like people middle-aged, maybe a little younger, I believe they can see right through it. And then the beginner voters, that's a toss-up. But that's how I see it, Jeff. I mean, I could be wrong or right. I don't know.
Interesting. So
much.
Basically, Scott, you're saying Scott thinks it's going to break 50-50. In other words, some will buy it, others won't buy it, and in the end, it'll have zero impact in terms of moving the needle. Scott, you know what? I agree with you. I agree with you. I don't think it's going to damage. It's going to damage her with you and me and us, obviously, because we see through her and we know the truth. I think for the general low information public, most people who just don't follow this stuff closely, I think it's a wash. That's just my opinion. I agree with you. I think some will buy it. Others will say she's disgusting. And I think it's probably they're going to probably neutralize each other. I could be wrong. I'm just giving you my honest opinion. 617-266-6868. Now, there is a good chunk of you in the audience, and I just want to say this to be fair to, the Kuhner country and to part of Kuhner country, that this was a disaster on the part of Kamala yesterday. Many of you are saying, Jeff, trust me, it was really bad for her to come out like this. Because she comes across like she's panicking, which is horrible, just in terms of the optics. But two, it's insulting. Many of you are saying, Jeff, many Americans, even the low info people, are going to, especially undecideds and independents, are going to say, how stupid do you think we are? You really think now you're going to haul out these retired generals 2 weeks before the day we vote and all of a sudden have us believe that the guy that already served one term in office and never sent anyone to jail, no judge, no journalist, didn't lock up Hillary, we just had peace and prosperity. We had economic growth at home and peace abroad. And you're trying to sell us that he's Hitler? Come on, how stupid do you think we are? So there is a good part of you that say, Jeff, this is going to blow up in their face even more. Even more. So agree, disagree. Jim in Florida. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Oh, hi. Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Jim.
The first thought I had when this story came out was of General Norman Schwarzkopf. He was an admirer of German generals. He had copies of their books on his desk. He was, I don't want to say, it's not the right word, admirer of them and their tactics. That's why we won the Iraq War so fast.
Well, not only that, Jim, I don't want to cut you off. I promise I'll give you all the time in the world. At West Point, they study some of these great German generals under Hitler. In France, the French military to this day go, my God, the Blitzkrieg, how they went, around that famous big wall that the French had put up, and they thought that was going to be their big protection and bulwark, and the Germans just steamrolled that. I mean, over and over. I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, look, honestly, look up biographies of Hitler's generals. These aren't neo-Nazis writing them. And they'll go on and say, boy, some of these guys were just brilliant. Hitler almost won the war. Germany almost conquered the world. Come on, people. What are we, children? Yes, of course they were evil, no question. But you wouldn't say this about Alexander the Great. I'll just give you an example. You go, oh no, we're a great man, and I'm not a conqueror. I don't believe in conquering countries, but he had some big successes, no question. And we still study a lot of his military campaigns. Suddenly, when it comes to Hitler, it's like evil, 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 bad, 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 bad. I mean, they're like children. That's what I mean. If General Kelly did not study Rommel, then I'm telling you he should never become a general. If he didn't study Guderian, he shouldn't be a general. So I'm happy you mentioned that point, Jim, because I remember Schwarzkopf, but many generals. Hell, MacArthur admired the German generals. Not admire as if, I wish I could be on Hitler's side. He meant these guys are good. I mean, they're really good. Churchill admired German generals. Here, it's a famous quote. Had Hitler listened to Rommel, he would have won the war. Montgomery, who was Rommel's arch nemesis, Montgomery was the famous British general, said, I never met a more worthy foe than Rommel. Like, come on, man. I mean, what are we, children? You know, so it's not a question that you love Hitler or respect Hitler or want Hitler or support Hitlerism. It's just, you know, history is a little more complex. And, you know, there are more nuances. And you want to understand a phenomenon, not just caricature a phenomenon. And that's, you see, Trump is an intelligent man. I bet look, Trump is the one, he always gets in trouble for this. He says, why do I get in trouble for this? He goes, I sit across Xi Jinping. Am I a Chinese communist? No. Do I think Chinese communism is abhorrent? Yes. Am I going to tell you the man's a stupid man? No. He's a brilliant man. He works like me, 18 to 20 hours a day. He runs a massive country. They're building up a big economy, manufacturing, military. They're a force and a power to be reckoned with. There's a lot of strengths there. We got to be careful. They're going to eat our lunch. And when he says this, he said Putin is smart. He loves Putin. No, he's just smart. Xi Jinping is smart. He loves Xi. No, he's just smart. You know, Benjamin Netanyahu will tell you that the Ayatollahs who run Iran, he goes, you know, these aren't simpletons. These guys have created a Persian empire. These guys are serious guys. So it's like, what are we now, 5-year-olds? Again, really, the dumbing down of America. So if General Kelly can't understand that, then I'm telling you, the guy never should have been a general or have any command in the first place. Am I wrong, Jim?
No, the problem is they conflate the soldier or like the people in the Kriegsmarine or the Wehrmacht or the Luftwaffe as being Nazis. They were not allowed to be Nazis. They were soldiers first. It was illegal for them to be Nazis.
That's a good point, Jim. That's a very good point. Jim, this last minute, let's call it a blitzkrieg. What the hell? I mean, since everybody's using a Hitler analogy, this blitzkrieg that the media, the Democrats, their October surprise on Trump, this press conference that Kamala held, this CNN town hall, is this going to damage Trump? Is this going to win her votes down the stretch?
I don't think so. I think Trump should have a press conference or something and just say, that's ridiculous. Give me an example of how I've been such a Nazi, you know, and they can't do it. They will, it'll die down like all the other attacks against him have died down. And I think he's going to win.
Jim, thank you very much for that call. I agree with you on every count, and especially the last one. He's going to win. Mike, how much time left? Craig on the North Shore, 90 seconds, go.
Yes, Jeff, the Democrats are doing the same thing that Japan did during World War II. Japan put the fear into their citizens and their soldiers, saying America was evil and that the American soldier was evil. And our uninformed voters are believing this left-wing rhetoric that they hear on these, the news. They don't. They're listening to that garbage and they don't know the truth.
Craig, bingo. Thank you very much for that call. Look, that's what I mean. It's a form of brainwashing, indoctrination that I don't think is going to work with undecideds or independents, but it's going to make the left and the base of the Democratic Party even more rabid, even more intolerant, and honestly, to me, even more willing to not accept the results of the election. And that's why I think what she's doing is so dangerous and so reckless and irresponsible. Just my opinion. 617-266-6868. Couple lines are open. All of your calls next.
It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans. All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is. This is a window into who Donald Trump really is. From the people who know him best, from the people who worked with him side by side in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room.
So now he's not even a Holocaust denier. Now he's a Holocaust supporter. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to, laugh in even using the word Holocaust, but this is so freaking preposterous. Like, you killed 6 million Jews. Yeah. These people are nuts. Holy mackerel. 9:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Look, parties lose elections. I mean, it happens, throughout our history, other countries. For them to be clinging this hard, this desperately to power, there's a lot. I want to know the crimes they're covering up. It's got to be something we're not even. It's unimaginable that we can't even possibly think of, because I've never seen anything like this. This is putting COVID to shame. The lies about COVID. I've never seen anything like this. 617-266-6868 is the number. Next, they're going to tell us he's a descendant of Hitler. Hitler had a love child, and it's Donald Trump. 617-266-6868. David in Brookline. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff, and thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
On a side note, rhetorically speaking, on a side note, does anybody think for 1 second that Kamala Harris gives a damn about the 6 million Jews that perished or anyone else that perished in the Holocaust? Do you really think she cares? That's rhetorical. The reason
but hold on. But just to reinforce what you're saying, her Hamas supporters, the Hamas wing of the Democratic Party, and her Hamas wing supporters, I'll tell you this. If I were her, I wouldn't go down that road of the Holocaust. Because I'll tell you this, either they deny it happened, because they're that despicable, because they're the real anti-Semites, or they think it was a good thing. Rashida Tlaib does not mourn the Holocaust. I guarantee you that. Ilhan Omar does not mourn the Holocaust. I guarantee you that. Those students rampaging on Columbia campus and at Harvard and all these other elite universities waving the Hamas flag and chanting death to the Jews. I don't think they're mourning the Holocaust, David. And those are her voters. But I digress. The floor is yours, David.
Neither does Obama. The reason I called, wasn't it Obama who in 2009 was floating the idea or calling for a personal military and civilian security force? Yes. These people are disgusting. Everything, as your earlier caller said, or you said, that they accuse Trump of, they've done or want to do. He specifically wanted a military force loyal to him. I remember seeing a video of school children chanting to him. It sickened me. It was like watching classic Soviet Union propaganda. And lastly, Jeff, no truer words, and it hurts me to say this, but no truer words were ever spoken than when President Trump said, the media is the enemy of the people. Think about this, Jeff, and I'm going to give a very simplistic example. They twist and distort words. You remember the movie My Cousin Vinny? There was a line in that movie with, I can't remember the character, played by Ralph Macchio. He said to the sheriff, I shot the clerk. And in court, that they read that as evidence. And the witness said, I shot the clerk. He admitted. You get my point, Jeff? They twist words. They twist reality. They distort everything to manipulate the people. Classic propaganda, because what can they run on? Name one policy that they can run on. What have they done other than created havoc and misery? What did President Trump do other than create prosperity and peace? They're disgusting. It's all over except for their violence. And as you had a caller a few weeks ago, none of us are violent, but let them try it this time, and they're going to find out what the good, honest patriots will do about it.
David, you're on fire, and I want to read to you something that Eric wrote to me on Messenger, and I think it's really spot on, and I want to get your take. Jeff, what makes Trump a great third dimensional chess player against foreign adversaries is that he never underestimates their intelligence or strategic capabilities. He understands that they're not as stupid as Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. I got to tell you, I think Eric really hit the nail on the head. As a guy, who cut his teeth in business, the art of the deal, never underestimate your opponent, never underestimate your adversaries, and realize, pay them the respect that they're smart, they're intelligent, they have a plan and a strategy, find out what it is and counter it. Is Eric wrong?
Absolutely not. You talk, you communicate, you talk to your enemies. If you're a strong person, that doesn't mean that you're going to give in to your enemies, but you just might gain some insight into what they're thinking. You might find President Trump was, again, they twisted reality. President Trump was finding common ground with Putin. Who knows what might have grown out of their relationship.
Bingo. Bingo, 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 bingo. In other words, don't caricature anybody. See the world as it is. See people as they are. More next. 9:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can text the Kuhner man. Forgive me. 70470. 70470. Have a bit of a scratchy throat. My apologies. Okay, this is from 508. And I agree with 508. I don't like to go down this road, but it's there. It's open. It's public. We have to confront it. Jeff, yesterday at Kamala's press conference, she basically said it's okay to go kill Trump if you want to save America. And sadly, there are people who believe as she does. Kamala reeks of the stench of panic. I agree. And at 508, not only that, Trump's campaign agrees. And I mentioned this earlier, but it really bears repeating. They sent out a blistering, I've never seen such an angry statement, official press statement in the wake of her so-called press conference. And they openly said, pray for the president, because it is this kind of precise rhetoric that led to 2 assassination attempts against him. And if we're not careful, there's going to be a third. And that's why I am condemning her in the strongest possible terms. What she's doing now is she's lighting a match. That's what she's doing. And she's creating a tinderbox. It is beyond reckless. It is beyond irresponsible. To me, it is clearly disqualifying. And this is from 781. And just to show you how preposterous her accusations are. Trump is Hitler. Trump is going to lead a fascist dictatorship and implement the Holocaust. Jeff, 781. Jeff, we can settle these horrible Hitler accusations right now. Let's ask Israel. Let's ask the Israeli government. Let's ask Israelis, Jewish Americans, and they will tell you the best U.S. president in history for Israel and the Jews has been Trump. Trump's favorite daughter, Ivanka, is married to a Jew. She converted to Judaism. His grandkids, who Trump adores, are Jewish. Checkmate. Checkmate. And check yourself into a mental asylum if you believe this. Really. One more and then right back to the phone lines. And this is again from Eric on Messenger. He's on fire today. Jeff, and I agree with Eric, Harris is mentally setting up her own January 6th against Trump. Bingo. Bingo. This is what's going to happen. Okay? And this, I'm telling you, it's going to blow up in the Democrats' face. They're setting the stage now for their own mother January 6th. Not of one day, but as Mark in New Hampshire said about an hour ago, for months. Don't certify after he wins. Block him after he wins. Refuse to accept the election results. As Sandy said earlier, intensify the political rebellion against Trump after they lose. And so what they're doing now is they're trying to lay the intellectual, moral framework or justification for them not to accept Trump's victory in November, on November 5th. And I'm telling you, the American people, the backlash is going to be so immense, they will not accept this. So the Democrats now are setting up their own Waterloo. They're not just going to lose on November 5th. They continue to go down this road. It will destroy their party completely. Completely. Because now they're setting it up for their insurrection. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Linda in Yarmouth. Thanks for holding, Linda, and welcome.
Hi, call. I just wanted to piggyback the comments about, I feel Kamala Harris is a dictator in her own way. I just listened to one of her monologues back when she felt she was losing almost $2 billion in federal funds due to truancy in California. And she made it a law that parents who keep their kids out of school for any length of time would be jailed. And a situation happened, a little girl in the hospital for 60 days with sickle cell anemia. After this law was passed, the police burst into the mother's home. She's in bed. She's in her pajamas. They handcuffed her and put her in jail. So subsequently, she lost her job. I mean, talking about, Trump jailing people. I mean, Kamala has the same record as a prosecutor in California. And, the same thing happened with Waltz during the pandemic. He would jail people who defied the mandate to keep their businesses open. So I just feel, they're going to be, copycats. If they ever get in, we have more to worry about than Trump.
Well, I got to say, Linda, look, to me, it's a brilliant point. You really hit the nail on the head, because that was a black woman. I remember I talked about this story maybe about a week or 10 days ago, and she had a daughter who suffered from sickle cell anemia, and the poor girl, by the way, very good student, and she kept doing her homework. She was doing, they had her bring tests home, and she didn't fail. In fact, she had a very good, I think a 3.8 GPA. Don't quote me on that, but it was a very good high GPA. But this poor young girl, because of her illness, couldn't go to school, just couldn't go. And she was in a hospital for 60 consecutive days. And there are pictures of that, a poor girl in a hospital bed. But her mother said, no, you're going to keep studying, you're going to keep working. And so for truancy, she wasn't going to school because she couldn't. And Kamala, as you rightly pointed out, the state of California, where they were losing several $1 billion a year in federal education funds, so they had to start cracking down on truancy. That lunatic, Commie Kamala, prosecuted the mother of that girl. And that poor mother had to get lawyers. She was lost her job. She lost her home. She was put out on the street. She had to live in shelters. They had to put her up in motels One week in one motel, another week in another motel. She goes, she destroyed my life. 2 years I was in court because Kamala wanted to put me behind bars. And what was my great crime? I took care of my sick daughter. She had to be in the hospital. We had doctor's notes. The hospital said she can't go to school. It didn't matter. And so this was a poor African-American woman and her poor, young black daughter. And they're coming out and they're giving testimonial after testimonial saying, whatever you do, don't vote for this woman. I know firsthand she's a monster. And the only one who's a dictator here is her. And I got to tell you, look, people make mistakes. I understand that. Sometimes prosecutors are overzealous. I understand that. And sometimes you go after someone, you figure, I was wrong. But to go after a mother over a sick child who couldn't go to school because they had sickle cell anemia? And again, J.D. Vance has been beautiful on this. He's been talking about it as well, saying she wasn't even failing. You can't even say, well, the mother put her in a hospital, but, the girl is failing school. She was doing great. She had 3.7, 3.8 GPA. So she did all her schoolwork. She did all her homework. She was, acing or near acing all of her tests and exams. Well, what can you do? The woman is sick. The poor girl is sick. What do you want her to do? Go to school and die? That's Kamala Harris. So, Linda, it's what we've been saying all morning. Everything they're accusing Trump of, they're guilty of. Am I wrong, Linda?
Right up, spot on.
Linda, please don't be a stranger. Call again. Mike, how much time left? All right. Dan in Plymouth, you've got 1 minute on the nose. Go. Dan? I think Dan is sleeping. Dan is sleeping. Okay. Dan is snoozing. This is, let's see if we can wake up Dan. Dan? Dan? You're on the air, Dan. Dan? Wow. This is, I gotta tell you, usually, look, he's still snoring. I gotta say, Dan, how does your wife put up with that, man? Can you imagine sleeping beside this guy at night? Look at this. Look at this. Look how loud he's snoring. Look at this. Look at this. I've never, ever put anyone to sleep. This is a first. You're watching history or listening to history in the making. Usually, people say, Jeff, you get me high blood pressure. You're like a shot of espresso in the morning. But putting people to sleep, this is a first. This is a first. Let's see if we can still try to wake up Dan before we come back. That was history in the making, my friends. It's a first, an absolute first. The caller fell asleep, snoring. And by the way, we're all saying, Sandy was like, I couldn't sleep next to it. I'd be in the guest room. Jeff, who can sleep with this guy snoring that loud? Sleepy Dan. That's going to be our new nickname for him. Sleepy Dan. This is from Vince in Florida. Jeff, that wasn't Dan. That was audio of the last Joe Biden presser. Many of you are saying that. Jack as well on Messenger said, Jeff, that wasn't Dan. That was Joey. 9:50 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. This is what I was trying to tell the team earlier. This is what happens when you keep playing too many cuts of Kamala Harris. You start playing too many cuts of Kamala, even when she's calling Trump a Nazi, and people start falling asleep. Skippy in South Boston. Thanks for holding, Skippy, and welcome.
Hello, Jeff. Hello, Jeff. Geez, I heard that noise. I thought it was my draining my bathtub backing up again. I had to run in and take a look. But, geez, I hope they resuscitated the poor guy. But anyway, pretty good. He must drive a Tesla. You get to sleep and drive at the same time. You gotta get one of those. But Jeff, you know how back
I wish I could sleep like that, Skippy. I swear, I wish I could sleep that deep. I mean, this guy, he was sucking in some serious air, Skippy. This guy.
That was Darth Vader sleeping. I'll tell you like that. But Jeff, you know how back in the day, Howard Stern was known as the shock jock. You know, I'll tell you, Carmela is queen of the crap talkers. She's queen of the crap talkers. Everything that comes out, it's like a steady flow of diarrhea of the mouth. It's no truth. But you know, you mentioned Lynch earlier, and I have that book, Rule for Radicals. That's the mainstay of their whole plan, though. That's like the core, is lies. There's no such thing as truth. We'll tell you what the truth is. Lies change, and they're subject to change. Everything right out of Orwell, you know. So that's her. That's the essence, is the lie. But that nasally, whiny, it's not quite like that snoring we heard, but she's got that nasally, whiny, it's a turnoff. In fact, you play on the cuts. I said in the background you should have sound effects of a toilet flushing while she's talking, because that's all it is lies, and she's a steady flow of diarrhea of the mouth. That's all she's good for.
Skippy, since you have Rules for Radicals, you've read parts or you've read the whole book, for the audience, because if I say it, they're going to say, come on, Jeff, come on, you're exaggerating for effect. The first page of the book, I don't know if you read it or not. Maybe some people just go right to the actual book, to the prologue and the introduction. But the first page of the book is dedicated to something or someone. Do you know who that is?
Boy, he dedicated the book to Lucifer. Least we forget, at least over the shoulder, acknowledge the very first radical, and so on and so forth. He's given here's my guy, Lucifer. So he say Lucifer would love this book. And he's right. And Lucifer inspired us. So why wouldn't he love it?
Bingo. Skippy, thank you for saying it. Literally, I have a copy as well. I first heard somebody say it on the radio. I forget which radio show it was. It was early in Obama's presidency. And I'm like, no, come on, no way. Like they're exaggerating, for effect. Like, come on, okay, the devil, yeah, okay. So I had to buy a copy of the book because everybody was like, Obama was inspired by, Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals. And right there in my copy. This book is dedicated to Lucifer, the first true community activist. The devil. So their fundamental political Bible, their guide, is literally dedicated to Satan. That tells you everything you need to know. Skippy, thank you very much for that call. Andy in Milford, thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Hey,
Andy.
First of all, I think the Kuhner man needs to get a bigger switchboard.
Why do you think I need a bigger switchboard?
Ooh, lot of busy signals when I try to call in, my friend.
Well, we're a popular show, Andy. What can I do, my friend? God, thank the Lord.
Yeah.
Andy, I don't want to cut you off, but we got less than 2 minutes, and I want you to make your point. Go ahead, my friend.
Okay. Actually, you've already put the log on the fire that I was going to put on the fire. You set it up beautifully with Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s remarks.
Yes.
I think, so I'll just expand on it. I think right now, even today, President Trump needs to call a national press conference. I think it needs to be a twofer with both him and Bobby Kennedy Jr. They need to directly address this October surprise where Kamala Harris is doubling down on this whole Hitler thing. They need to completely debunk it. And Bobby needs to go into, this is the kind of dangerous rhetoric that led to the political assassination of two members of our family, of my family. And I mean, they need to put this down hard.
Drop the mic, Andy, I love it. I love it, love it, love it. The perfect exclamation point to the entire show. Trump, she called her emergency press conference. Trump should now call his, and I love it. Bring RFK Jr. with him and say, this is what led me to being shot in the face. This is what led to Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s father and his uncle being killed. Turn the tables on him now. Bye-bye.